Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller. On with me now, Simeon Collins. He is a former director of the Grenada Bureau of Standards and the first chief executive officer of the Caribbean Agriculture, Health and Food Safety Agency, CAFSA, a CARICOM institution. And he's joining me now to talk about safety and standards at this time as Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, even parts of Jamaica, have been battered by Hurricane Beryl. A lot of aid flowing into these countries, particularly for Carriacou and Petit Martinique, where the total devastation has happened after the July 1st passage of Hurricane Beryl. Lots of aid coming from different places, food and water, and we're now even looking at the importation of building supplies because of the sheer number of homes that have to be rebuilt and roofs repaired after the destruction. And so we need to keep an eye on standards. There's also an issue of agriculture imports may increase for Grenada. The hurricane also devastated large portions of our agriculture. 85% of agriculture among 80 farmers faced destruction at the hands of Beryl. Our forestry took a hit as well. And so we will be importing, according to the Minister of Agriculture, we will have to import agriculture products. The issue of safety and the source of these so that we do not introduce organisms into our ecosystem that are destructive is also something that we have to keep our eye on. But we're talking food safety and building safety with Simeon Collins now. He is also a former head of Grenada's emergency housing program after the 2004 passage of Hurricane Ivan. Welcome to the program, Mr. Collins.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. As you said, I think I'm in a very good position to speak about this because during the Hurricane Ivan in 2004, I was director of the Grenada Bureau of Standards. That's the body corporate that was set up by government to ensure that all products, processes, and practices in Grenada meet necessary standards. And in addition to that, after Hurricane Ivan, I became the chairman of the Emergency Housing Committee, the committee that was appointed to rebuild the housing stock in Grenada. So I think I'm in a very good position to speak about that topic.
And I know one of the things that we faced after Ivan was that from a neighboring island, they were doing a good gesture, but a batch of expired water came in, and people were not aware that they needed to boil this water in order to consume it safely. And so we have well-meaning people would send things that they may have had there for a while, and they send it to Grenada, and people are using it unsuspecting of the danger that might be lurking. Do we need to pay attention to? I don't really know if people have time to check the expiry date when they're in a disaster areas such as Petit Martinique and Carriacou, but we really still should. How do we guard against something like that not happening again as happened after Ivan with the water?
I know certainly that in Grenada, after Ivan, we had bottled water coming in that had passed the best before date. In fact, some of them had passed that best before date almost two years. Actually, they seem as something that they had stored in some storeroom and then sent to Grenada. But then there were no potable water in many of the pipes in Grenada, and people were actually going to the river to take water. So we had to advise them boil the bottled water that coming in instead of using the river water. Okay, this would get rid of any sort of microorganism, E. coli, or any other fecal organism that was in the water. Just boil that and you can use it.
And so now we're in almost the same situation as we was after Ivan. With it's just districts. Beryl was kind to us in that she did not touch every part of the state as happened in Ivan. She's almost a designer hurricane. She chose parts to affect. So we have a lot of aid pouring into Carriacou and Petit Martinique, some to the north, but a lot into those countries. Without, is there some sort of system where that sort of thing is checked? Is the Bureau of Standard by regulation required to test all the water that's coming into the country, and by, I mean, not every bottle, but the batches of water that's coming into the country. What sort of system, from your experience, is in place now since Hurricane Ivan to sort of guard the gate?
We do the Bureau of Standard have someone fully at the port in Grenada, one or two officers, and they take samples of water and have it tested. But as far as Kyrick is concerned, we have no one up there. But what I realize is that most of the supplies are coming through Grenada first before going to Kyrick. So I'm hoping that checks have been made there. Here we go.
Because in the heat of it, and with a lot of institutional memory probably lost, it's been 20 years, that whether or not in the heat of the moment, that I know a lot of water went to Karakou within the first 24, 48 hours that did not go through any official port. People were taking things up there, and the water that comes off the supermarket shelf is relatively safe. But things were coming from all different sources at that time. And so for the people themselves, how do they protect themselves from anything that may be expired or not good that well-meaning folks would send?
Well, actually, using your media, that's where we can get across to them to remind them that if they have any sort of diarrhea or anything like that, vomiting, please boil the water before drinking. That's one of the things we can say. There are other products that, that you have to be guard against, because I must first of all there's a difference between expiry date and best before date. If you notice written on the label of any product mark, expiry date or best by, used by, also such and such, that product should not be used at all. Just get rid of it. If it's the expiry date, if it's the best before date, what the manufacturer is saying is that the product may be still good to use, but the taste, the texture, the nutritional value might not be as good. So you may be still able to use that 2 or 3 months after the best before date is passed.
So if it says use by, the use by date and the expiry date, get rid of it, or is it just the expiry date?
Well, use by and expiry same, get rid of it.
Oh, okay, get rid of it. But if it says best by, then you have up until that point to enjoy the quality that the manufacturer has advertised, and after that there's no guarantee that it would still taste the same or feel the same. But it's not necessarily, it has not necessarily become dangerous to consume.
Well put together, well put.
All right. And any other, besides food products, any other products that people actually need to pay attention to, that once they go beyond that date can be dangerous?
Well, if we want to move away from food products, in terms of infant formulas, just keep it still on food products. In terms of infant formula, you have to be very careful. Once it passes that, they don't use it at all, because their immune system are not as strong as ours. So once it's in yogurt or so, things that infants would use, don't use them at all. But other products would be a lot of construction materials, because right now there's a lot of construction materials coming in. We have cement. Here in Grenada, we make concrete blocks, ready mix concrete and so on. We have to pay careful attention to that. There were standards for these. I know the Bureau tests concrete blocks all the time, and then they put out a listing regularly of the concrete blocks which are load bearing and which are non-load bearing. Those that are load bearing are those that you could use in outside walls. So your outside walls, you can stand the load. But if it's class B, which is non-load bearing, you can only use them inside. So that's something we have to get against. In terms of ready mix concrete, we have standards for that, and the Bureau usually tests concrete, ready mix concrete, and the once the builder, the contractor, the owner of the property invite them to do so. It's not a mandatory standards. Okay, not mandatory standard. So we have ready mix concrete, we have concrete blocks, and we have cement. We have a standard for cement also here, and I know that is being monitored by the Bureau of Standards.
And so there's a rush to the recovery effort, particularly with housing and buildings, because we're so early in the hurricane season and that Beryl came so early and houses are now without roofs, some of the houses are falling apart, that people might be rushing and busy to do construction, to rebuild, to get that security of the shelter, just in case other systems get our way. And so you may go to a block seller to buy blocks. You need to be able to ask whether or not he's selling you the one that you require for the load bearing or not.
Yes.
Because someone may go to a blocks guy and go home with $6,000 worth of blocks that are not designed to be on the outside of your construction.
Yeah, that's so important. You must do that. Around now, as you said, there's a rush for materials. It happened in Ivan, it is happening again, and that's why we were saying those of you who are find yourself having to build or retrofit or so, you should make all efforts to make certain that you do it right. Something that we introduced in 2004 after Ivan was hurricane straps, and these are important. I know that we started out, we had conferences and seminars for builders and so. Because before that, there were not even hurricane strap in Grenada. We had to get Hubbards and some of the houses, M&M, to import the hurricane straps for the first time and show them how to use it to strap your house.
It had been 50 years since the last one, so
That's
when I
that's
even
what
came. Uh-huh.
Yes. And brace your house, brace your roof with the straps, and foundation, everything is a strap to brace it. So that was something we had to introduce. We also told them you're building and you want a house is something you should be building once in a lifetime, and you know that we're in a hurricane zone right now. I mean, before we used to say when Janet passed in 1955, we used to say, no, we don't expect anything again. But then Janet passed in 1955, 50 years later we alive, and 1 year later we have Emily, and now we have one in burial. So we actually in a hurricane prone zone. So you have to ensure what you're building is strong enough. So you building a house, you look at the roof. You should have what we call the hip roof instead of gable roof. If the hip roof more or less slope, the full sides are sloping downwards. Okay, so that the with short eaves, so that the wind cannot get under there and blow it off. So if you have your hip roof strapped properly with hurricane straps, and so it's difficult on short eave, it's difficult for the wind to blow off your roof, and that was one of the major things that we recognized um, during Ivan. In addition to the roofs and so on, you have to make certain that your 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 columns and so are properly braced. If they are not braced, the wind will blow them away. So you have to make certain they are properly braced. Even wooden houses, especially timber houses and small houses, have them properly braced. So nothing can move them or blow them away easily. So these are things that more or less we should take into consideration. There's a lot of them. I've just completed an article on that and I will share it with you soon after.
Mm.
I hope to have it published in the
In the
Grenada
newspapers. Mm. Okay.
Grenada this weekend. But I'll share
Mm.
it with you and so you can share it with others.
And the hurricane straps, let's talk about that. Is this something that is incorporated in the construction, or is it something that is independent? Because you hear straps and you think, okay, something to strap down. Incorporated into the construction, or something that you put on independently, separately?
It's not incorporated at all in any construction. It's just separately. It's something separate that you have got to buy and put on. It's not a big one. Some they have different ones, they have long ones, they have short ones, they have different ones. You pin them to the roof right now in my house. Say I had some because I lost my roof during iPhone. So you
Roof,
you
and
you have
your family, your mother also lost her a roof as well in Ivan. You had some.
yes, yes.
So now you're not taking any chances. You're probably one of the most prepared people because you had several hits
And
during Ivan.
with that, the whole Bureau of Standards roof gone, and we lost a lot of materials and other things at the Bureau of Standards. Even my vehicle now got damaged, so I know what it is.
Mhm. And so the hurricane straps, they are sufficient to withstand and to hold a properly built home. And with the hurricane straps, sufficient for a category 5 or a category 4 a hurricane where you can be confident, relatively confident that you'll be fine?
I wouldn't say it's sufficient. There are other things that you have to do, but these
Such
are
as,
necessary. That, as I said, bracing your house and so on, and using the right column size, using the right size eaves, and and so on, and heat proof and so rather than gable roof. If your house is in an L shape, you have to make certain that they are not connected. You know, just as straight, but you should have a little passage between that so that the breeze can blow through, and something like that. These are all things, a lot of things that could be done to ensure that you could actually be safer.
the homes are, and so we talk a lot about climate change and hurricanes coming faster and more furious. Any new home, any new construction that's being built, and any refurbishment that's taking place because of destruction from the hurricane really has to take those things into consideration, because the reality is that at some point a hurricane is more than likely going to take us out again. Beryl and
So
Ivan are
that's
not the end of it.
well put together. Well put together.
Now, our agriculture, and I know that's one of your areas of passion as well. Our agriculture, I think 80% of farmers lost about 85% of their viable crops, their production, or long-term crops and spices. And so nutmeg took another hit again after we replanted after Ivan. And fruit trees, I'm told by the Minister of Agriculture that, he's like, we won't have fruits for a while again, unquote. That's what he said. And that we need to look towards importing a lot of these things, which should come with a cost implication. They will most likely cost more. And also a safety, pest and disease implications there. We have to guard against that. And I know we have systems at the port, for instance, to deal with things like that. What do you suggest the country do? What should be the approach as we try to recover agriculture? We'll talk a little bit about the safety as well, in terms of how we get things into the country that won't bring in bugs and other things that we don't need. But how do we begin? What should be the approach? I hear people talking about climate smart agriculture. What should be the approach?
Very interesting. Yes, you're so correct. The agricultural sector in Grenada is facing a lot of challenges, not just natural disasters such as hurricanes and drought, because even before the hurricane, we had some serious drought and a lot of our crops die. I had some bananas out there and they die because of the climate. And all this, as you said, is due to global warming and climate change. In addition to that, we have shortage of land, access to land. We do not have much lands in order to plant everything. We have problems with access to water, because if you are not irrigating, you could have some serious problem with water. And you mentioned a lot of emergency pests and diseases such as the mango weevil. We had the coconut greening and so on, and a lot of other pests, which can affect us in Grenada. And so the agricultural sector is really, a sector that we have to be very careful, and we have to mitigate against that as much as possible. What I want to suggest, because I started looking at an article, for instance, recently on bananas, and I was surprised to realize we actually do not grow bananas for export anymore, not just Grenada, but almost the entire Caribbean. You see, um, because of the hurricanes that you plant them today, you lose them tomorrow, and so on. Um, and that has created a serious problem. I was very concerned because I always see the geese boat out there, and then somebody tell me the geese also come to collect bananas to bring to Europe again. It bringing in cars and other heavy vehicles, tractors and so on.
They're coming, they're diligently helping to make sure our imports bill stays
Mhm.
high. That's what's
Yes.
happening now. It's sad.
Yeah. And not only I realized soon after, I was just looking at our statistics that Grenada is importing a lot of its bananas from the US, whether it's Chiquita, Latin American bananas, or Dole, or one of them. These are most of our bananas. You see nice, beautiful bananas on the supermarket shelf. These are foreign bananas that are coming in. So we in a crisis as far as the
we are,
is concerned.
a few days ago, was it yesterday or day before, one of my sons said to me, Mommy, Grenada imports 1,000 times more than it exports. And I said, really? And he
Mhm.
thought, even my son is, this is crazy, a
You
thousand
see,
times more
it
imports
really
than
is
what
good.
than what we export. And I was like, wow, okay, well, apart from being very proud of that he knew that. um,
Very good. Very,
so we have that crisis situation, and the prime minister said a few days ago, Mr. Collins, that we are now 7 to 10 years behind on our target, the CARICOM target of 25 by 25, which is to reduce food imports, by 25% in the islands by 2025. It's all part of their food security program moving forward. And now we are 7 to 10 years behind. We were not doing very well in meeting that target in the first place. And now we face that setback. What should the approach be? Because we're not just trying to do 25 by 25. We really need to get our food production up and running, in a better way than we do. Our food security is really threatened based on the situation that exists now. What we have the opportunity to take a new approach, because every time you get these shocks, it's an opportunity for a new approach. What would you suggest the new approach be?
yeah. Um. Basically, when I was in Capstar, that is something that we discussed, a lot because we more or less were responsible for agricultural health and food safety. So we had to discuss that a lot and prepare papers for the CARICOM heads of government and so to look at. And something that came up is that we should try to trade within ourselves as much as possible because going trying to reach out there, we are not reaching out there, but make it one CARICOM is we are all CARICOM nationals. Let us try to trade within ourselves as much as possible. So if you have bananas and so said Pinson and Dominica, anyone who have bananas, yes, you trade with Grenada. So Grenada don't have to go outside and buy it and so if have yams and things we know have been traded already. So CASA was tasked with was tasked to develop 19 standards, okay, SPS standards, sanitary and phytosanitary standards for products which can be exported regionally, which we can trade regionally, and if possible, try to export any extra and so on. I know that these have been completed. I don't know how far they reach with the implementation of these standards because once this was done, this would have been used as what would facilitate trade in the region. So that was one of the approach. Another thing that we can do.
Even if we have the framework for facilitating trade, we're still faced with having to import a lot of inputs, high energy costs, and a few other things that place us at a disadvantage. Where even the stuff we import might end up being it's easier and cheaper in some instances to just import it. A farmer here in Grenada was saying to me that they went on this whole program of producing citrus. And when they went to one of the large new supermarkets that opened, they said, oh, no, we've got a license from the government to import all of this. They were making arrangements to supply them, but then they couldn't supply them anymore. The farmers were trying to produce here, couldn't supply them anymore because the government had given the supermarkets a license to import the very things that the farmers were making. So we have those challenges as well. How do we work around all of that? And then we have climate change.
Yeah, you're so right because the major problem is that you have, for instance, the bananas, even some of the citrus and so on. You all the dollar bananas coming from Latin America. They have big fields, hundreds of thousands of acres of bananas or oranges or whatever. We have a little things, and not only that, cheap labor, very cheap labor out there. So as they said, I mean, a pound of banana is less than $1. I was coming to me come up to about $5, $6 when you check all that. So it's not an easy thing to say. We shouldn't. We're trying to lower the cost of the food basket for the consumers also. So that was one of the areas. But there are things we can actually use. I was talking to someone recently. I think it was the Minister of Agriculture. expansions, and we are discussing greenhouse farming technology, something that we could make more use of in Grenada. Okay, whereby you ensure that you have your greenhouse, whether it's made of plastic or glass or whatever you choose, and you have it properly covered so that pests and diseases cannot get in there. The heat wouldn't kill your not enough heat, humidity that can affect your crop and so on, and you get a good yield. So that was all the areas we were talking about. We also talk about hydroponics, using more or less growing your product using water as much as possible.
So we've lost Simeon Collins there, but we'll wrap it up here. This is a narrative, and I was speaking there with Simeon Collins, and who is a food safety expert and the chief executive officer of the Caribbean Agricultural Health and Food Safety Agency, CAFSA, a CARICOM institution, also a former director of the Grenada Bureau of Standards, and also the man who headed up Grenada's emergency housing program post-Ivan. We were talking about standards and safety as aid flows into Grenada for Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and people rush to rebuild their homes. The importance of ensuring that what you build with and how you build is actually in your best interest and can withstand hurricanes and other natural disasters. More when we come back.